So fast forward a little bit, and I started my master's degree in folklore. And my research and my in-depth study was in the personal narrative. And the more that I studied the personal narrative, the more in depth we got, the more fantastic and fabulous and interesting it was, because I found out how we use story. We use it to share experiences, we use it to teach, we use it to connect with people, we use it to share awe. I mean, the functions of story are huge. And my love of story and my understanding of story increased exponentially, to the point where by the time I was getting finished with my master's degree, I was looking at what are the next questions, the next research questions pertaining to personal narrative that I'm willing to spend 6 more years getting my doctorate working on. And the one story or the one question that kept coming up was, did your life turn out as you expected? Because mine didn't, and I still hadn't figured out how to make peace with that. So I was ahead on I had already met with my thesis committee, and my thesis had been approved, and I had the last semester of my master's degree, and I had time. So I was working on my dissertation proposal, and it fell into place. I knew that the title of it was Love Your Story. And that has stayed consistent all the way through. And the question was, did your life turn out as you expected? And I got a sampling of 20 women across the United States, and it was very diverse. So there was different cultures, different socioeconomic status, different levels of education, different religions, different sexual orientations, and they just had that one question. Did your life turn out as you expected? What did you expect? How did it turn out? What did that look like? Are you okay with it? And the results of that were that 19 out of 20 women said their lives did not turn out as they expected. And that about summed up that last quarter before I graduated. And I took all of that, and it made me feel like I wasn't so alone, but I knew that I didn't have everything that I needed yet to move forward with that particular research, or where Love Your Story was going to go. So I put it on a shelf. And then, as fate would have it, and I do feel like this was divinely directed, I had a friend come into my office one day and say, Lori, there's this emotional intelligence training workshop that I went to, and it's phenomenal. You have to try it out. And I said, why? And she said, well, because you've got some issues with men that you really need to work through. They're stopping you from being able to move forward. And I knew she was absolutely right. And frankly, I didn't know how to get past it, because my experiences with men were that they couldn't be trusted, that they were only about sex, that really they were basically pieces of shit that would use you. And I had these deep-seated experiences that validated all of this. And then every time I turned around on a date, men just proved themselves to be that same way again. So I had a lot of baggage. And of course, how do you create a good personal relationship with a man when deep down there's this mistrust and this bitterness and cynicism and things that I just really didn't know how to get by, because that was my life experience with them. So I went. I bought the plane ticket. I bought the tickets. I went and I did this workshop, and it was one of the most transitional, helpful, beautiful things that I've ever done, and it was so pivotal and so important to happen right at that time. So I started it. I went out with just an agreement to do the first part, and it was so effective that I did the second part of it, and I did the third part of it, and it was over 6 months that I did all of this emotional intelligence training in it. And I was coached. I had personal coaches. I ended up after the program transitioning and personal coaching, helping other people who were along the same route, and it just became the next step. It was the next step to solving this. So in my master's, I found the questions. I studied the questions. I understood what the questions were, but I didn't have the answers, and I didn't have the solutions. And then through the next year of the emotional intelligence training, I found the answers, and I reframed my stories. And the best part was that I went from being ashamed of my story and not wanting to tell it to anyone to really accepting it, to accepting and reframing that all of the things that had happened to me were actually the things that were going to make me beautiful, that made me patient and understanding and non-judgmental and loving and empathetic, that gave me the skills to see people and to see their stories and to see their struggles in a light that is absolutely and critically full of love, to see them in the beautiful light that they are because I've already walked the path. So, how does that transition into love your story? After I finished with my path of coming to love my story, we get to a place of giving back. We get to a place of the highest healing comes when you are ready to give back. And Love Your Story was a give back. Love Your Story was created not only to provide inspirational and entertaining podcast episodes of other people's stories, but also to help other people understand the control that they have over their own life stories, past, present, and future. I didn't understand it at the time, and I don't know how many people do unless they have guidance to be able to do it. And that's what I understand now, and that's what I'm trying to share.